Hello, it's Alex and welcome to Hey Little Thrifter. Today I'm doing a tag video. It is the Horror of 2020 book tag, and what a horror it was. This tag was created by Marie McWilliams and she tagged me as well to do it. So thank you, Marie, and I will leave a link to her video, so definitely go check that out too. Okay, so there are 6 prompts. The first one is pandemic, and this is an obvious answer, but I just recently read The Stand by Stephen King, so I figured it would be fitting to talk about. This is about a pandemic and the progression it takes and what happens with the survivors. And I thought the first chunk of the story was very affecting because of the similarities to what has been going on in the world this year. The descriptions of hospitals overrun with people dying, people just dying left, right and centre, the President of the United States of America downplaying the importance and severity of what was going on. Yeah, it all felt a little bit close to home, and yeah, was really interesting, kind of tough to read at the same time. I did really like the beginning chunk of this book. As it went on, my experience was a bit more mixed. But yeah, I just recently talked about this in my reading wrap up if you want to hear more of my thoughts. But this nevertheless fits the bill for a pandemic book. Prompt number 2 is politics, and talk about a dystopian novel. And again, it might be an obvious answer, but I have to mention The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I read this some years ago and it blew me away. It was definitely a 5-star read for me, and this is set in a world where, for one thing, women are basically used as baby makers for rich people. And yeah, that's just one thing in amongst a whole bunch of other things going on. But wow, this book is so well written, and yeah, the ideas here, the idea that as a woman having your rights taken away, and not only that, but also then being forced into doing certain things or not being allowed to do most other things, is a terrifying one. I know recently it came back into kind of pop culture with the TV show that came out, which I haven't seen, but yeah, if you have not read this one, then I highly recommend it. Prompt number 3, hate. Tell us about a book that you hated. And I'll be honest, I don't know if there are any books that I hated, but there are definitely books I have not liked, and I decided to go with one that lots of people love and I did not. Nosferatu by Joe Hill. Oh my god, 2-star read. Even then I feel like I was being generous. It was so long. I just didn't care about any of the characters. I thought the villains were too childish and just silly to be any kind of scary. The whole story was just all over the place. Feels like he definitely takes more than a few cues from his father in just having a bloated, meandering story, and I just wasn't into it. I gave this one a go a few years ago after so many people had recommended it, and I wanted to give it a try. It wasn't for me. Don't know if I would say I hated it, but I definitely didn't like it for a lot of reasons. Prompt number 4 is End Times. Talk about a book involving an apocalypse. And again, another probably very obvious answer, but it's the one I had to go with. The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is set in a post-apocalyptic world, and we're following a man and a young boy as they are travelling through the country and just trying to survive, and it is so bleak and awful and so well written. It's a really amazing read. It's one I read probably several years ago now, but I still think about it occasionally, and yeah, there are a couple of moments in there that I will probably never forget. And I remember seeing the film adaptation for this when it came out at the cinema. I was like an absolute wreck. I remember just having to rush to the toilets at the end of the movie because I was just in bits. I was sobbing. So that was fun. Anyway, it's another one that I think is famous for good reason, because it really is an amazing read, and again, I would highly recommend picking it up if you haven't already. Prompt number 5 is crime. Talk about a book involving a crime, and I chose Zodiac by Robert Graysmith. This is about the Zodiac killer in San Francisco during the 1970s, and not only did this person commit several crimes and murders and taunted the police with various letters, including some that were written in ciphers and were really difficult to crack, but also he was never caught, and is still a very fascinating story to look into today. I know recently a group of people finally cracked one of the codes that hadn't been able to be cracked for decades, which is crazy. But yeah, it's a very strange and awful but interesting case, and this would have been the first ever true crime book I picked up. I know this book originally came out, I think, in the mid-80s, and I picked up this secondhand copy in a secondhand bookshop when I was a teenager. I guess the spine, this really worn spine with the title Zodiac and then the symbol, must have just really caught my eye, and then when I pulled it out and looked at the cover, I was like, whoa, what is this? I need to read this. And it was £2.50, and I have a very distinct memory of reading this one summer. Must have been like mid to late 90s. It must have been during the summer holidays from school. And the other thing that I remember very clearly from, I guess, that summer time was listening to the soundtrack for The Crow, which my sister had on cassette, and I kept stealing from her to listen to in my cassette Walkman, and reading this book. I just have a memory of that all being in one thing, so very 90s, and I think that was the age when I was starting to get into darker, weird stuff. This was a really interesting read for me at the time, and it has in the middle all the interesting, maps and reproductions of pictures and letters and stuff. Do they still even do that with books? I don't even know, but I love that in a book, and this just holds a lot of memories for me, as well as being a very interesting case and an interesting read. Okay, and the final prompt, number 6, is hope, which I think is a very fitting word and feeling to end on, and I'm even wearing this t-shirt that says good luck on the sleeves, because I think we could all do with a bit of good luck for the new year. Anyway, this prompt is to talk about a book coming out in 2021 that you hope is going to be good, and I had to look through some lists online because I didn't really have anything specific on my radar right now, new release wise, but this one definitely piqued my interest. It is Goddess of Filth by V. Castro, and I'll read a little bit the way that the author described it. Think The Craft meets My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, but all Latina and set in San Antonio, Texas. So that's how she's described the book, and that sounds amazing. I need to read it. Not only does this one sound great on the surface, but I think that is hugely important for people of colour and people from underrepresented cultures be a part of the horror genre, and yeah, not only tell their stories but have them read by a wider audience. You know, that's all incredibly important. So really looking forward to reading this one. It comes out in March, which is also my birthday month, so I'm definitely going to pre-order this one, and I look forward to getting a copy and reading it, and I will definitely follow up and let you know my thoughts when I do so. So that was the Horror of 2020 book tag. I liked how we ended on a positive note there, and I'm going to tag a few people: Alicia at Alicia Reads, Brad at Brad Proctor, and fellow Alex at the Bookish Report. Apologies if you've already been tagged, and yeah, no pressure to do it if you don't want to, but if you do, I would love to hear your answers. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!